Good evening and welcome to the local campaign, helping voters make an informed choice in the upcoming municipal election. I'm Kim Wilson and I'll be your host this evening. Tonight we have the Cambridge Ward 8 debate. Cambridge's 8th ward is located in the central east end. Its boundaries are made up of North Dumfries Township to the east, Pine Bush Road to the north, Hespler Road and Elgin Street to the west, and Avenue Road to the south. The candidates vying for this council seat are Nicholas Ermetta, he's the incumbent, Kenneth Bartlett, and Carla Johnson. Speaking order was drawn earlier, so that with his opening remarks, here's Kenneth Bartlett.
Well, I'm interested in running for council just to make sure, not to say the city's not running efficiently, but to see if we can find more efficiencies within the government or within the city. I've been a long-time resident. I plan on being a long-time resident, and I just want to make sure I can do my part for the city.
Thanks, Kenneth. And Nicholas.
Hello, good evening, friends. It is a real honor and privilege to be your current Ward 8 councillor, which I've had the role since 2010. I've really enjoyed every moment of it. I love this city. I'm very passionate about Cambridge. Ever since I was a young age, prior to being elected to council, I've been involved in a number of committees. I've been involved in charities. I rode my bike around the city to every street. I've always been very passionate about Cambridge. And on council, I really care about you. I really want to hear what you've got to say, and I want to be the best representative for you. I always take your concerns to City Hall. I'm not City Hall's voice in the ward. I'm your voice at City Hall. And my background is urban and regional planning from both Mohawk College and the University of Waterloo. I've also had the privilege of serving on a number of city committees, such as the Budget Committee, the Planning Committee, Youth Advisory Committee, Trail Advisory Committee. I've been on the Arts and Culture Committee as well. And I love Cambridge, and I just believe the city still has a lot of potential. And there's been a number of different initiatives I've been working on in the ward with success. I was able to get 3 playgrounds in the area in 4 years. And there is also some work that's been done on the stormwater management off of Burnett Avenue, which I was able to champion at City Hall and get results. So I am working very hard for you. There's still a lot more work to be done, and I want to be around to see it through. And I'm very excited about what the future holds, and it would be an honor to represent you again, and I'll work extremely hard. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicholas. And Carla.
Good evening. My name is Carla Johnson, and it is my privilege to be standing here as a candidate for Ward 8 in Cambridge. I care deeply about our ward and about the entire city, and I'm excited for our future. I sincerely appreciate the unique things that make Cambridge, our city, both special and challenging. I'm running with my daughter and other young people in mind. I'm looking to have an inspired vision of our future to guide us. Today we're facing some very serious challenges in this city that will require creativity and require visionary minds as we move forward, bringing together all ideas. We can also celebrate enormous strengths. We're right on the 401. We have an enormous number of wonderful entrepreneurs and business people. Artists, musicians, they work hard every day. They go the extra mile to make our city as prosperous as it is. My husband, Stephen Ward, and I moved to Cambridge in 1990. We rented our first apartment in West Galt. We bought our first home in East Galt. And 9 years ago, we bought our home in North Galt. It's our second home. And we raised our daughter in Cambridge. And I enjoyed several years as a dance mom. And then I became her taxi driver when she attended Preston High School for all the events that she was involved with there. I've been a middle school educator for my career, and as I've been around, taught in several parts of the city, Hespler, West Galt. The bulk of my career has been right here in Ward 8. Ward 8 holds my heart and it holds my home. Most voters are quiet, hopeful types. They want to be assured that our leaders will take the challenges that our city needs to help us grow together proper and to grow stronger. These quiet, hopeful voters, though, have been disappointed with politicians who use negative energy and feed off of that. The residents of Ward 8, I repeatedly shared 2 concerns. One is the new residential development in the golf course, and the other one is the maintenance of Northview Park, on the Northview Heights Park. I want you to know you are included. Democracy demands the cumbersome job of including everyone's voice. I want you to feel when you're included, you'll be inspired and hopeful for a future. If you're inspired, you will then get involved. You will be able to roll up your sleeves and participate. I ask for your support for Ward 8 on October 22nd. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Carla. Thank you all for the opening remarks. We'll now start the question and answer portion of the debate. So with the first question, we'll go over to Cambridge Chamber of Commerce President Greg DeRocher.
Thank you very much, Kim. First of all, I want to congratulate you for putting your name forward for public office. It's not an easy thing to do. It presents its own challenges, especially when you're in the heat of an election, and I want to congratulate you for doing that. I also want to thank you for coming tonight to share some of your own personal wisdom on issues of the community and issues of your ward. Do you think our core areas are healthy and successful? If not, what would you do to change that?
And we'll start with you, Nicholas.
Thank you, Greg, for that question. The answer that I have is I do believe that our cores are thriving. They're a lot better than what they were 10 years ago. There's a lot of exciting things happening in the core. There's the Gaslight District in the Galt area of Cambridge there. We've had the streetscaping in Preston and Hesper. There are the hip development lofts in Hesper. And there'll be more projects coming along, more residential projects in the core. We're going to be seeing some more employment downtown. And also, too, I just want to also communicate that there's been 32 new businesses that have opened up throughout the 3 core areas. So there's a lot of exciting things happening in the cores. And, the city has invested heavily with the pedestrian bridge, which has attracted about 120,000 to 140,000 people using that structure. And there's been talk about seeing more restaurants in the area on the south side of Water Street. So a lot of exciting things happening, but it also has its challenges. There's the drug issue and some of the vacant storefronts that we're still trying to find the new businesses to open up there. So, there's still a lot more work to be done. And there are some people in the community who do not feel safe downtown, even though I do believe it's safe down there. Although it's not perfect, it is safe. However, when people are saying they don't feel safe, that's an issue that I take very seriously. So there still is a lot more work to be done in the core areas, and we've made a lot of progress so far, but we'll continue to do what we can to address the cores. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicholas. And Carla?
Regarding our core areas, this is a very good question. What I love about our city is that we have these 3, in fact 4 unique communities, small communities. We have Hesper, Preston, Galt, and we have Blair. And when you live in Cambridge, you actually get to live in a small town with the amenities of a big city. And it's a really wonderful feature that not everybody understands is pretty wonderful about our city. It also presents challenges because sometimes we look at each other, one group looks at the other and says, oh, sometimes we feel like we're fighting over the scraps a little bit. But we also have, it's a beautiful advantage in terms of a sense of community. I think our core areas are doing quite well. I think we've had a nice run recently. I think the economy has been fairly decent recently. We've seen a really good growth in a number of areas. I love some of the changes we're seeing, some of the things that are happening. A lot of stuff definitely is happening down in the Galt core. I'd like to see a little more effort put into helping Preston and Hesper their core. And I'd like to see a little bit what Blair is thinking they'd like to see. One thing I'd like to support with, and something we can do as a council, is come up with some ideas to support our businesses, especially our small businesses, because we see some come in and then we see them go. And I've often wondered if there's something that we as a city council could do to support those small businesses in some way, to give them a sense that we are behind them and want them to thrive and want them to stay. And the other thing is community spaces. I'm a big believer in community spaces, places that bring people together, and take a look at our core areas, because there's an often connection between success of business with spaces that draw people. So those are the thoughts that I have in mind about that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Carla. Ken?
I think our core areas are thriving. Galt is developing nicely. It's got a lot of jobs, a lot of infrastructure going in. Roads are being finally repaired. It's a nice area, but it still needs to be cleaned up quite a bit. There's a lot of homeless down there. I know it's not an issue that we can take care of overnight, but there is a lot of homeless. The bridges, for example, is not really a positive part of that core. Preston as well does need to be cleaned up a bit. It has been, it's a really nice area, a lot of older historical buildings, but it does need to be cleaned up a little bit as well. A lot of businesses are coming in and going. Hesper, nice area, a lot of development, a lot of new condos coming in, but again, it's a little clustered to get around. Blair, it's a nice area. Not much that I would want to change or do with Blair. It's just, it's a historical area that has a lot of historical value. But overall, I think they are thriving, all three cores, yes.
Thanks, Ken. For the next question, Nick, you mentioned a little bit about the drug issue in the core. I'm curious to know, what would you do to address homelessness and addiction in Cambridge? And we'll start with Carla.
We as a city are facing the same challenges that so many other cities and communities are facing across North America. I call it, in fact, I would say downtown Galt, it's a perfect storm, and in our case, it might even be a triple storm. We're dealing with the fentanyl coming in across the country and taking what has been traditionally, we've always known there's homelessness and there's drug issues, and those have been sort of part of our community, of all communities, but it's been taken up to a whole other level on a crisis that we've never seen before, with fentanyl coming in at the same time as we're struggling with opioid crisis, which is directly related to medication given by doctors. And we're dealing with it it's very brutal, and it's affecting people that it should not be affecting. It's taking people that have been highly functioning, and it's reducing them to a drug addict that struggles to survive every day. And that is why things have gotten so, we're so troubled. That's our double storm, and they call it the perfect storm. We have fentanyl and the opioid. But on top of it, I think we have some criminal activity that's also, which makes it a triple storm in Cambridge. So I think as I've spoken to other people and spoken to people in the community, there's definitely a lot of things that we're looking at that have to be looked at really, really carefully. I think safe injection site, of course, is being brought up and talked about, and it absolutely has to be looked at carefully. There's a few ideas that people have floated around, the idea of maybe having, and I realize it's going to come from the region, but I think it's important we have a voice in this, and have a place where we can have allow for drug addicts to be able to come in and talk to someone, provide a doorway to get them off the street. If there's any way we can provide that with an SIS site, and other things, I think we need a drop-in center, or maybe we need a few of them. And I've heard some ideas floated about putting even the SIS sites in smaller ones in the smaller communities, so we don't create one large magnet area. So there's a lot of really great ideas, and this is the kind of thing that we need to sit down and look at really, really carefully. Thank you.
Thanks, Carla. Ken.
So as far as the homeless issue, that was the question, right?
Homelessness and addiction.
So homelessness, I think what needs to happen is Cambridge has seemed to put all the homeless into one section, making it really, really bad. I know where I live, there's a lot of homeless. There seems to be a lot of homeless, and I don't take my kids out at night. There's no reason to. I don't want them to see that. I think that needs to be really cleaned up. I think it needs to be, if it is an issue that we have to deal with on a daily basis, all three cores need to deal with it. It can't be thrown entirely on Galt in one section of the city. As far as a Dixon issue, that needs to be dealt with provincially. I mean, the city can do a little bit. We can have our safe injection sites. I don't fully agree with them. I think it just promotes the usage of drugs. Plus, you have to watch where you put it. Can't put it around schools. Can't put it around, retirement homes. You really have to be careful. It brings down property values. It just has a huge effect on the city. So you really need to watch where you put that, and that needs to be thought out very, very carefully. As far as the addiction issue, there's not really a quick solution to it. Something that would have to be worked on at all three levels of government. Everybody would have to work together.
Thanks, Ken. Nicholas?
Thank you for the question. This is a very serious issue. I would say citywide, it is definitely the #1 issue. And, people are people, and there's a lot of pain in the community. It breaks my heart. It really does. And there's a lot of victims, and, we need to be compassionate. We really need to care for our brothers and sisters and reach out to them. And on our council, we've been very proactive on this issue. We're looking at the ambassador program. We're looking at the Iceland model. We're reaching out to the region and the province to basically say that we can't do this on our own. We need your help. We need all the levels of government to get together and work together to solve this thing. And you know, it's a really serious issue. It's been mentioned that it's affecting everything from property values downtown to just, you know, to see what people have to go through. And you know, there needs to be help there for those who want to get the help, and for those who don't, we need to somehow reach out to them and to get them to want to get the help. And I'm not a fan of safe injection sites. You know, I've seen the research on both sides. There's always pros and cons to everything, but in my view, I still believe that the negatives outweigh the positives. And what I hope is to see something better come along. So if you're not going to have a safe injection site, you need to do something else. And I believe as a council, as a government, we need to be proactive on this and not leave those people out in the cold. That, you know, these are people who are dying. We need to care for them. We need to reach out to them. But I'm not convinced that site is the answer. And as I said, there's something better that will come along, and we're working diligently towards that. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicholas. Next question, Greg.
Property tax is widely known as the most unfair tax that there is. It's based on the perceived ability to pay. Individuals retire, their income goes way down as they are now on a pension, yet their property taxes continue to rise. What will you do to approach the massive, complex city budget and ensure your one principal responsibility of being a good steward of the public purse is front and center?
We'll begin with you, Ken.
Oh, okay. So property taxes are property taxes. You have to pay taxes. You get services for the taxes. I mean, they are fair. It's always going to be too much money. I'm always going to pay too much money in taxes. I'm not going to like paying taxes. However, you know, do we have two employees doing the same job? Are we paying the region for a service that we're also paying the city of Cambridge to have the same employees do the same service? We need to look at that and just make sure we're not, you know, double spending. We want to make sure. I want to make sure that, you know, if we're paying someone to plow the streets here, we're not paying the city of Cambridge to drive around in a truck, and I'm just using that for an example, but just drive around and do a meaningless job that we're already paying someone else to do. As far as that goes, I think, you know, like I said, taxes are taxes, and I think it's they could always go down. So.
Thanks, Ken. Nicholas?
Thank you for the question. I agree that taxes are always a huge issue, and you know, there's really no perfect answer to it because municipalities have huge responsibilities. There's been a lot of downloading with social services. Back in the day, Hesper Road was a provincial highway that was looked after by the province. Now it's a regional road. And of course, there's been things that have been downloaded onto the city as well. So, you know, with the increased level of responsibility and not having enough tools to provide the funding, it is an issue. But, you know, when I look at the budget, it's not my money, it's your money. And I take that very seriously. It's a huge responsibility that you have entrusted in me to look after your money. And you know, it's just like people I know who work in the private sector who are responsible for the budget of that company. They applaud the company for the work well done, but they're always, their manager, like the boss, says, "You've done a great job, but go back and find more savings." And that's the attitude that I have with council and with our staff. They do a great job with the budget in terms of running an efficient city because we do have a lean budget, and our staffing levels are roughly the same as what they were back in the 1990s. But there's always improvements to be made, and I'm always saying we have to try harder. We have to find greater efficiencies. We need to look at new ways to fund things, such as a new sponsorship program that we're looking at, and staff will be bringing that to council, that we're going to be looking at getting companies to donate towards city services in recognition for that. Thank you.
I anticipate that if I were elected to council, navigating the budget would be probably one of the most challenging things that I would face, and we'll face it early on in the year too. We'll probably spend time looking over the budget, trying to whittle it down into something, finding some efficiencies, finding some ways to save some money here and there. But as a newcomer, I anticipate it's going to be difficult to near impossible to do. We'll listen to the city staff on that. As time goes by, though, I want to assure you I'm a very conservative spender myself in my own life. I know how hard I work every day for the dollar that I bring home, and I know what it means to wake up early every morning, go to work and do my job and do what I'm told to do and come back home, and I know how hard I work for those dollars, and I will absolutely respect your hard-earned dollar too, because that's what this is about, is respecting your money and respecting you've entrusted it to the city, and the city has to make sure that it honors it as carefully as possible. And when I hand my money over for city for taxes, I know I have to do it. Like Kenneth said, taxes are taxes. You can't avoid it. And I've never met anyone who said, "Hey, our taxes are we don't pay a lot in taxes." Everyone complains about our taxes, and as well we should. Now. It's interesting because I said I'm a quite conservative spender myself. My husband and I have owned rental properties over the years, and many times I've walked into some of the rental properties and they have nicer furniture, nicer things than I have in my own home. And I've often would be like, what is with that? Why is that? And I'd have to remind myself that some of that stuff was on rent to own and that kind of thing. And those are people who are spending money sometimes really carelessly, whereas I've spent mine carefully and thoughtfully, and it's paid off over time. And that's the way the city has to approach the budget. A huge budget that it is, we have to spend it carefully and thoughtfully, because when we do that, it does pay out over time. Thank you.
Thanks, Carla. For the next question, you all sort of touched on the safe injection sites. You kind of voiced that you don't really like the idea. I'd like to know what your position on locating a safe injection site is within the city of Cambridge, and we'll start with Nicholas.
Thank you for the question. I've made it clear that I'm opposed to the safe injection sites. I've stated that position at council, so council is aware of that. I am a collaborative kind of individual, so at the same time, if one is coming to the community, council and myself, we've made it very clear that we do not want it in any of the 3 core areas, because we're trying to revitalize them, and there's a lot of investment happening in the core. And if you want a thriving downtown, if you want to keep it that way and really help it reach its full potential, you can't have a facility like that down there. So in terms of a location, I'm against it, but if it's going to happen, probably the hospital would be what I would consider to be the lesser of evil, because you've got the services in place to support it, and it could be 24 hours, so it's flexible that way on a transit route. However, I'm dead set against safe injection sites. It's not something that I will support, and I want to see something better out there. We need better programs to get people off addictions. We need more affordable housing, and on this council, we've passed affordable housing incentives that have been successful in seeing some new units created. And we're asking the region to get on board with that to match what we do. So hopefully they will end up doing that, and that we'll have a program as good as we do with the brownfield sites. But in the meantime, we're doing our part, and we're after the region to do theirs. And also, too, I also go down to companies that build affordable housing, that build homes that people can own, and I try to get them to come here to Cambridge so that we can see more of those units created, and I think that would go a long way to addressing the problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicholas. And Carla.
Well, as I said earlier, I've heard some ideas from several people, and one of them, I like the idea of having smaller sites in our individual communities as opposed to one large magnet site. I think that's an option that I think a lot of people would be very open to, and the idea of attaching it to the hospital is also a really smart idea to look at too. It may be out of our hands, but we don't get to dismiss ideas. We are in a crisis. We're in a crisis like we've never seen before. This is the first time in history that we've dealt with these 2 crises landing on our laps, the fentanyl and the opioid crisis. We don't get to go with the traditional route. We have to think of some things. We have to do some things that are far more aggressive, and they may be counterintuitive. We have to be open to those ideas. We also need to listen to other communities. We need to listen to Vancouver and what they've learned, because they're ahead of us on the learning curve, and look at other communities. We also need to look at Toronto and listen to those. I'd like to see us make a decision too that's in keeping with the other communities around us, keeping with Burlington, Mississauga, Guelph, Brantford, Hamilton, all these other cities around us, and these districts around us that are dealing with the exact same thing. I believe that we can do something that works in tandem with all the other regions. I think we can maybe look at having some more success and helping each other, because we're not in this alone, and we're not going to get out of it quickly, and we need all ideas have to be put on the table, and all ideas have to be looked at very carefully. Thank you.
Thanks, Carla. And Ken.
So I think if we have to do the safe injection sites, I think the best place for it would be somewhere that's away from a suburban area, No schools, we don't want to be around the children. You have to think of the children. You don't want to be around any built-up condos. Basically, where anybody's living. You want to be, I would think, like these two have said, a hospital, maybe by a police station. There's 3 of them in the region. Pick one. I would think maybe this isn't the best idea, but maybe at a bus station, as bad as that sounds, and the region or the city pays for very high level security, and that way when someone goes in, they do their business, they shoot up, they use their drugs. They don't come out of if they're at the bus station, they don't come out and they don't, mess with anybody. They don't give anybody a hard time. People are known, okay, security, we need security because these people could cause a problem, and if you have to have these sites, that's just the cost of doing business. You have to have security, you have to pay, you have to make sure everybody else is taken care of. You can't just think of the addict, you have to think about everybody else. Thank you.
Greg, next question.
Your particular ward, Ward 8, is probably one of the wards, one of maybe 2 wards, where a lot of your residents live there and work elsewhere. Transportation's a big component. We travel the 401 every day, and it's not the most friendly thing to travel on during the work week. How important is GO transportation to the city of Cambridge, and how important would the LRT be in your impression coming to Cambridge?
And we'll begin with Carla.
Very good question. I think we are long overdue to have GO come to Cambridge. I know we've been asking for it. Ontario government, let us have GO, please. Let us have GO from Cambridge to Milton, please. That it would make a big difference for many people commuting in that direction. And the other thing is, I like the LRT. I don't understand why anyone would be opposed to it. It's going to be a big connector, pulling us all together as a region, all the way from the south end of Cambridge all the way up into Kitchener and Waterloo. And it's an interesting project, and I understand there's a lot of mixed feelings about it, but I think that the concept of faster and more efficient public transportation is essential to making our city grow, and essential, and I think it's going to bring up property values, and I think it's going to make this place a much more wonderful place to live. So I'm absolutely open to both ideas. There's a lot of interesting things out there. I did some traveling this summer. We were in Spain and Portugal for a little while, and when we were in Sevilla, Spain, I noticed that they also had an electric rail transport, but where the stop was, it was grass. The rails ran right through grass, and you had this sense of that you were actually in the park catching the train. And there's just something really beautiful and sensible to that. And I'm not saying that we can do that in Cambridge, at least right now, but that idea that our public transportation gets woven into our daily lives and it becomes something that we can live with really smoothly and really comfortably. I think there's some really great genius ideas out there that we can learn from other cities. Transportation is a key thing. We're right on the 401. If I can even add, I'd like to see the 401 get Cambridge being more aware on the 401. So when people drive through Cambridge, they know they're on the 401 through Cambridge. You know you're driving through Cambridge. Right now, you drive through the 401. I drive it every day, and there's a lot of backyards. There's a lot of parking lots backing onto the 401. Our signs are in need of repair and trim. I'd like to see us have stronger signage to say, welcome to Cambridge, and some signs saying, hey, this is what Cambridge has to offer. I know you're on your way to some other destinations, but why don't you stop in here, head down the highway, and have some lunch on your way? So those are some of my thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks, Carla. Ken.
So I think the more transportation we have, more public transportation we have, the better. We don't want to turn into Toronto. Toronto needs transit. Toronto's got too many people. Toronto needs transit yesterday. We don't want to run into the situation where we get big enough that we needed the transit 10 years ago. If we can get GO service, I think the buses are already at Sports World, if we can get them to come into Cambridge. If we can get the train service into Cambridge, that would take us all the way to Pickering, I believe. You save money on fuel, you save money on wear and tear on your car. You go to Toronto, you spend more money. You can go anywhere. If we have the LRT in the city, again, that brings up, again, like Carla said, property values. The city gets, that much more attractive to somebody who's used to taking public transit from a bigger city. They'll come here, they'll say, hey, I can work here, I can live here. They're going to come here, they're going to spend more money. I think the LRT here will do nothing but good. I know we're getting buses, I think, but if we can get trains too, that would be great. We can go anywhere and everywhere. GO service, again, anywhere, everywhere. I think the more transit we can get, the better. I think the better off we'll be. And then, like I said, the more money you'll save as a consumer. Less gas, less wear and tear on your car. So overall, I think it's a plus. So, thanks.
Thanks, Ken. Nicholas.
Thank you for the question. Go Transit is a no-brainer. You know, I talked to a lot of residents in the ward who work in Mississauga, and they were saying 10 or 15 years ago you could get there in 3/4 of an hour. Now it's an hour and a half on a good day. So, you know, like gridlock it's a huge problem. It's only going to get worse as people move further and further west. You're going to get a lot more traffic on the 401. And, you know, so to me, it's a no-brainer. And I was looking at the different GO lines across the Golden Horseshoe. And the busiest line, obviously, is the Lakeshore line from Burlington to Bowmanville. But did you know the second busiest line is actually the Toronto to Milton line? So, you know, extending that to Cambridge is a no-brainer. They should be putting the money where it's needed because it is needed along that corridor. You know, it's past time that we got that done. And we've done a number of studies on our council. We've been very proactive in trying to pursue the province to get the GO train. And the province actually came back and said it would be too successful. And that just, I mean, I wasn't surprised to hear that, but I'm thinking a lot of the time with transit, you end up subsidizing it. So if it's too successful, well, get it done already. And with the LRT, I have huge concerns about the costs. To bring it to Cambridge, you're talking over $3 billion. And you know what? The benefits are overstated. They are overstated. In terms of the whole reurbanization aspect, that could have been accomplished with rapid buses. That's what York Region did. Along Highway 7, they put in rapid buses. You know, so I think we should be exempt from paying the LRT. We should not give up on that. And we should be investing in GO Transit. That would be the #1 priority for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicholas. So I'm curious to know what you think. Should Cambridge withdraw from the region of Waterloo? And if you think yes, I'd like to know why. And if you think no, I'd like to know why not. And we'll start with Ken.
I think I think Cambridge should stick with the region of Waterloo. I think it would be an absolute waste of money to secede and go out on our own. We rely too much on the region for services, for the services that we'd have to then go out and purchase all the, all those new assets, manpower, overhead. I think it would just be a stupid waste of money to leave the region at this point. We have too much invested into it. They provide too much service for us. If we leave them, the region is going to be well overstaffed and we get blamed for it. So I think we need to just stick it out. We're not getting treated horribly from what I understand. We like them, they like us. We work well together. We've got Kitchener and Waterloo and all the small townships. Everybody gets along. I think it's a great relationship. So, thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Nicholas.
Thank you for the question. My position is I believe that the region should be dissolved and replaced with a services board model. I believe that would be a much more efficient form of government that would allow for some form of regional collaboration when it comes to cost sharing among the services. But at the same time, it would give the city a lot more autonomy. Like right now, the region is the one deciding the amount of garbage collection that we get. The region is the one deciding where the transit routes go and how long the buses operate and so forth. And those decisions should be made by Cambridge City Council. The best decisions are the local decisions. So I'm for more autonomy for Cambridge. I believe that the services board is the most realistic way of doing it. And the board would have very weak powers, mainly just from a cost sharing point of view. And we already do something similar with purchasing. Whenever the city goes out and purchases items, we're part of a purchasing board, and cities opt in and out of that. Sometimes Kitchener partners with us, but there was a time when they had pulled out and another city outside the region actually partnered up with the city. So I believe that it can be done. I have not ruled out a standalone Cambridge, although it would be very hard to get there. But if the province says we're getting rid of the region and making Waterloo region into one city, I will say, well, then get Cambridge out of the region so that we can be on our own. I think as a last resort, it would be good to look at it from that standpoint. And they did split the Halton and Norfolk region in half, so it has been done before. I mean, it's not ideal as a first choice, but if it's either that or doing the amalgamation, I would say separate in that case. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicholas. And Carla.
Thank you very much. I think this discussion about us seceding is a non-starter. And it is, in fact, this discussion is one of the reasons why I've chosen to step up and run for City Council. It came out of the blue. This was not something that had been discussed. It came out of the blue, and Councillor Metter brought it up and brought it onto the news and created a good stir about it. But this is not something that I felt had been in place earlier, and I felt, in fact, a little winded by the conversation, because I think even talking about it undermines our sense of community and who we are as a community. One of the reasons why I chose to run is because I'm frustrated by politics being lived out in the press. This is not something that I believe anybody had been talking. It's been talked about over the years. So over the years, it's been brought up several times. But I think it is essential that we stay with the region. We are tightly woven together. We are geographically woven together. And the thought of separating us is something that is, my crystal ball says it's not going to happen. And I heard something on the radio the other day. It was a business person that was being interviewed about this very topic. And the comment they made was that Cambridge is the country bumpkin cousin that no one wants to invite to the family reunion. And it hit me hard, and I felt the sting of it. And I believe this conversation about whether or not we should secede is part of the reason why we are sometimes seen as the forgotten sibling in the region, because of these conversations. Almost feels like a little bit of a sort of a tantrum. We want out of here, we're not happy, we're going to leave, as opposed to stepping up to the plate, stepping ourselves up, pulling up our socks and saying, you know what, we're going to meet you eye to eye and we're going to participate with you as a region, and we're going to make ourselves heard at the table, as opposed to deciding to move out. Those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks, Carla. Before we move on, Nicholas, I'd like to give you an opportunity for a rebuttal.
Thank you. So it was mentioned that I had brought the whole thing up. I just want to make it very clear that when Premier Ford announced he was cutting Toronto Council in half, that he also had mentioned he's revisiting regional government across Ontario. So I'm being proactive. This discussion is coming. It's not started by me. It's started by the provincial government. They're going to be reviewing regional government all over. And I want to put in a system that's got less duplication, less red tape, and that would give our local communities a greater say. Thank you.
Next question, Greg.
I have a fun question for you. This is really fun, so have fun with this. Keep your minds open a little bit. The provincial government comes along and gives you a grant of $2 million to be spent in your ward at your discretion with no strings attached. You get to decide how you're going to spend the $2 million in your ward. How do you spend it?
We'll begin with Nicholas.
Thank you for the question. That's an excellent question. $2 million, unfortunately, doesn't go as far nowadays as we'd like it to. However, there still is a lot of opportunity. I think, first of all, when you look at something like that, you have to go to the people. So what I would do if I ended up getting an amount like that is I would hold a public meeting, perhaps several, to really hear from the neighborhood where, you know, where they would like to see that money go. But at the top of my head, though, some things I would look at is improving the recreational facilities in the ward. So, for example, there's Whitmer Park off of Canamera Parkway, where the neighborhood would like to see some kind of a shelter for shade and, you know, protect from the elements. And, you know, even getting like basketball courts there, maybe a splash pad. Actually, we're looking at putting a splash pad on Saginaw Parkway. It's in the 10-year plan. I was able to lobby staff to put it in the 10-year plan. And, you know, that could be something that we could put some of that money towards. And even in the neighborhood behind the Cambridge Center, it was designed to be an adult lifestyle community, so there was no park put in there. Now you get all these young families, they would even like a little structure. So I think, you know, recreational facilities would be a great thing to look at. I also think, too, we could even look at traffic calming measures, because I do know that speeding is a problem in the neighborhood. And I know that generally the city doesn't really like speed bumps, but I would have a look at that. Anyways, I have an open mind, or putting pylons down the middle of the road, the slow cars down. So there's a lot of opportunities. I've mentioned 2 of them, but really it comes down to you. It comes down to what you want to see, and that would make myself accessible to hear your views. Thank you.
Nicholas. Carla.
Thank you very much. The first thing that came to my mind was parks. Community parks, all age parks. The part of Ward 8, part of Ward 8 where we live does not have a convenient park nearby at all. In fact, you'd have to get in your car and drive to a park. I'd like to see them sprinkled around the community more. We are the suburbs. Ward 8 is all suburbs. And so we need to have spaces that are community spaces that bring people together. The idea of all these spaces that attract different ages, things for young kids, things for teenagers, things for adults, older adults, have parks with stages so you can have local bands and concerts and theater and productions like that. Even have parking areas so you can bring in food trucks, things that bring us together, because in the suburbs we tend to go in, close our doors, and not talk to each other too often unless we can talk over our back decks or something like that. So I would like to very much bring the community together with parks, and we are in need of a few extra in our area too. Thank you.
Thanks, Carla. Ken?
So I think what I would probably do with the money is I would probably go out to the residents and see what they want. But I think I would kind of stress that, we repair any roads, you repair any sidewalks, you repair anything that needs to be repaired, you repair anything that's going to cause an issue, anything that's going to cause somebody to get hurt down the road. You make the neighborhood a little bit safer, a little bit cleaner. Maybe go with the traffic thing, definitely slow down traffic. That is a big issue. Just slow everybody down. There's no reason to, it's not a speedway going through the suburbs. There's no need to go that fast. But that's probably how I would use the money. I would use it to make the neighborhood a little bit safer, a little bit cleaner. Just make everything a little bit neater, a little bit tidier, and make sure everything, the roads, sidewalks, and everything are operating the way they should be. So that way everybody gets along nice and neatly. So, thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Next question.
Some say that we have a ton of traffic congestion. Ward 8 is home to the infamous roundabouts. Have they helped the situation? Are you a fan of roundabouts? Or what else would you consider to mitigate or help those who complain about traffic congestion?
We'll start with Carla.
I put it on my website. I'm a fan of roundabouts. I'm an avid driver. I love road trips. I love traveling. I like being in my vehicle. I call my truck my second home. I love to drive, and I really enjoy roundabouts. I find them far more efficient. They are very safe. I know when they first came out, people were nervous about them. I had one of my friends call them a death trap, but the whole point of a roundabout is it slows traffic down. It allows us to weave together and get on our way. And there has been a learning curve. Every new thing has a learning curve. Whether the region and the city did enough to help people, make people aware of how to drive a roundabout, that's a good, I can't answer that question right now. I know that I was very excited to have them come. I had looked at the research. I knew what they meant. I know the first one that came to my neighborhood, I went out there on a quiet lunch hour break and I drove it myself just to navigate it, look at the signs and figure it out. And I'm really glad that I did that. I've traveled a lot. I said earlier I was in Spain and Portugal this summer. There are roundabouts all over, and different kinds of roundabouts. They have roundabouts with lights in them. There are lights before you enter, lights before you exit. There's a lot of different varieties. Sometimes there are roundabouts that lead into roundabouts. And that might seem a little nerve-wracking for some people who haven't driven a lot of them, but they can be learned. You can learn how to drive them, and they work really smoothly and really effectively. I am thrilled to see them, and I'm also thrilled. I love the way our Franklin Boulevard looks. I love the whole landscape of it, with the large sidewalks, the room for cyclists and walking along it, and the whole flow of it. I just think it creates a really great feel for the community, and it absolutely moves traffic through. I'm driving along parts of the road that I never drove on before because I was so frustrated by lights. And I can assure you that roundabouts are, as much as they cost money to put them in, lights are extremely expensive to maintain too. So there's a lot of reasons why I like roundabouts, and I'm staying with them.
Thanks, Carla. Okay.
I think roundabouts are good. Roundabouts are good on a major road. Franklin Boulevard roundabouts are amazing. They save you a lot of time. There's no stop and go traffic, no lights. Nobody knows how to not use the lights, or somebody wants to run the light. You can't run a roundabout. So I think roundabouts on a major roadway are a great idea. They're not perfect for everywhere. I don't think we should have them in suburbs. I've seen them in cities where they have the roundabouts in the suburbs. I think that's stupid. People go around the roundabouts a little too fast in the suburbs. Stop signs are a great thing in the suburbs. It just makes things a little bit more cautious. Makes people pay attention a little bit more, I think. In the suburbs too, maybe somebody might get hit on a roundabout a little bit easier, because let's be honest, maybe you don't always pay attention on a roundabout. I think roundabouts are good in ways. Roundabouts are bad in other ways. Like I said, great on busy streets. They've definitely sped up Franklin Road, but not good everywhere. They're not the best thing, but they have their pluses. So I think that's my thoughts on them.
And Nicholas.
Thank you for the question. It's a very good one. Well, as you know, it's been a big issue in my term of council, and my position has always been that I do like roundabouts, although not on a routine basis, like more on a case-by-case basis. Like there's pros and cons to them. They don't work everywhere. They do work in a lot of areas, but they don't work everywhere. And they've got their pros and their cons. Like obviously, they reduce the head-on collision by about 90%. The dangerous accidents are reduced by 90%. They do slow the traffic down, which is good. And you know, like they're aesthetically beautiful with the landscaping in the middle. Although that's kind of got some disadvantages as far as the sight lines, but generally, it makes the city look more attractive. So you know, I do like them. But I do have reservations about having one at St. Benedict's High School. I'm still not convinced it's a good fit for that intersection. And there have been some unintended effects of roundabouts. For example, some of the residents have told me that since they were put in, there's been an increase in traffic on their street because some people do try to avoid them by taking the side streets, and it has created more traffic in those neighborhoods. There's also been people on the side streets that have trouble getting onto Franklin Boulevard at certain times of the day. And then, you know, you've got the issue with pedestrians where people are looking to the left to see that there's a car coming, but they forget to look to the right to see pedestrians. And in Europe, they've got the crosswalks further down, and they've got tunnels in some cases. So, you know, they've got their advantages. I do like them, but there's things that we need to do to improve them as well. Thank you.
Nicholas, before we move to the next question, Carla, I'd like to give you an opportunity.
Councillor Mehta, I'd just like to point out to you that from what I've read and watched over time, you have been very much an opponent to roundabouts. You were repeatedly in the press talking about how you were opposed to them even as they were going in. This is one of the things that has bothered me about the development in Ward 8, is that this constant opposition to roundabouts. And I just looked them up recently in the newspaper. There were several articles again about how you were very much opposed to them. And I voted for you 2 times. And I wasn't always happy with the things that you opposed, but I was hoping that I could watch you grow and you sort of get some mature as you went along. But it felt like more and more you say no to a lot of things. You say no to almost everything that I've seen come forward. You're a no person. And there's a number of people in Ward 8 that were yes to roundabouts. And they wanted to have a councillor that said yes to those roundabouts and helped us navigate them instead of being a strong, strong voice opposed to them repeatedly. And a few other issues too. Thank you.
Thanks, Carla.
Thank you for an opportunity to respond. I've been interviewed on this a number of times, and I've had a message that I've stuck to. And I've been quoted in the paper saying that regional council was moving along too fast on these roundabouts, that you don't force it down people's throats, you bring them along. And I was actually quoted in saying that you bring people along. You don't ram down a dozen roundabouts or more down people's throats when they've got concerns about it. And I was quoted several times that they need to slow the process down, allow people to get used to them, and that you bring people along. And the one roundabout that I did strongly oppose was the one at the high school, and I just said that I'm still not supportive of having one at that location. Thank you.
Thanks. Did you want to add anything, Carla?
I would like to add that I know that many drivers in Ward 8 were very anxious and happy to see them come. And I'm not sure you heard those voices. I'm not sure you were listening to the voices of the people who really wanted to see them and were very happy to see them and are enjoying driving them. I like to talk about the quiet, hopeful voters that just hope that the right thing happens. And sometimes the region has to move things and city council has to make decisions. And I don't feel at all like they were rammed down our throats. I think that we were ready for them and we were wanting them. And we're very happy that many of us feel very happy that we have them.
Well, as the incumbent councillor, I am the one who gets the phone calls. I am the one who door knocks between terms and asks people where they stand on the issues. I'm the one who goes to events and I hear from people in my ward at those events. And the majority of people, from what I had heard from, had said they were uncomfortable at the rate that these roundabouts were going through. Yes, there were people for the roundabouts who thought, yeah, put them all in. But there were a lot of people who were hesitant. You know, they supported them, but they wanted to kind of see how they would go. And then you got those who opposed them, but who changed their minds afterwards. But anyways, I was going by what I heard from people in the ward. Thank you.
Carla.
Well, I was one of those quiet, hopeful voters who had no intention of running for politics. I had no intention of getting involved, and I feel like I'm a bit of a sleeping giant that got woken up through this process, because the people, there will always be complainers, and the complainers are always the loudest ones in the crowd. The negative voices are always the loudest ones. And responding to those negative voices means that you're feeding off the negativity and you're making the negativity grow. And that does not help our community be stronger. We need to have voices on council that say yes to these things, and I'm going to help you get there. I'm not just going to oppose things, I'm going to help you get there. And this has been my frustration, is this constant saying no to things, because those negative voices, if you read a review for a restaurant, you will find lots of negative reviews on there, but if you go and actually enjoy the meal there, you'll find out you like it. We don't tend to speak out when we're happy, we tend to speak out when we're frustrated, and the majority of the voices, I believe, in our ward, we're very happy with those coming through. And it would be good to see balance in how things are handled.
Thanks, Carla. Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, did you ever call me? Did you ever ask to meet with me in my office? Have you ever attended my town hall meetings? I never once heard from you during the roundabout debate. Never, not once. And so, you know, you're for them. That's great. But did you ever contact me? No, you didn't. I encourage people to speak up, and I know where my ward stood based on the feedback that I got, and I represented them well. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Ken, would you like to jump in at all?
Oh, I just want to say that I agree with Nicholas that a roundabout at the Saginaw School is a horrible idea. A lot of young people just don't pay attention when they cross the road, and I think that's a situation that's going to be bad maybe one day, hopefully not, but it quite possibly could be. Stoplights at that intersection are probably a great idea. Roundabout, bad idea where a school is, I think always. So, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Ken. Well, that was a great discussion. Thank you for that. We're going to now move to the closing remarks portion of the debate, and we're going to begin with you, Carla.
All right. I want to thank Rogers for making this possible tonight. As a candidate for Ward 8, I bring an enormous amount of creative energy and good vibes. Anyone who knows me can affirm that I go out of my way to make things happen, to listen, and to be on top of things, and to pursue things. And I go the extra distance, and I put the extra energy into it to connect with people. I'm a strong people person. I'm also a strong doer, and I like to make sure that things happen. And I'm not just a follower. Anyone who knows me in my career knows that I've stood up many times to people that I had to work with when I felt that something was wrong and needed to be changed. Yes, I've been a middle school teacher. It's one of the most vibrant careers you can ever anticipate. But I also have a heart for entrepreneurs. My father owned his own heavy construction business. I learned to handle front-end loaders, and I learned to handle weigh scales for dump trucks over the years when I was a young person. I love driving my four-wheel drive vehicles, and that came naturally. I grew up at a log cabin. We had a log cabin in the bush where I learned to drive snowmobiles and motorbikes. So there are many different facets of things that I've done. A few years ago, I published 2 books. I learned a lot about the challenges facing small business people at the time. I joined a group called Bravo. We were a type of dragon's den where people came to us with their business ideas, and we were located in Mississauga, as where we met every week, every 2 weeks. Then they would bring us ideas, and we would brainstorm to try and help them launch their businesses or further develop their businesses. And my husband works in the development industry, so I've had a chance to watch what happens behind the scenes in many of the developments in Cambridge and in the areas around Kitchener, Waterloo, Hamilton, and Mississauga. I have a very good idea about how development works. I'm ready to embrace all the great ventures that this city holds, and I wish the best to each of my panel members here tonight. My name is Carla Johnson. My students call me Ms. J, and I'm asking for your support in the election on October 22nd. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Carla. And Nicholas.
Thank you. Well, Ward 8 residents, you know, I love this city. And first of all, I do want to thank the panel here for attending tonight. And it's always great to hear different ideas. And, you know, we're all on the same page as far as loving the city. So I've really enjoyed this debate. And I want to thank Rogers for hosting this so that you can hear from all of us. and that you can make the right decision of what you would like to see. So I love Cambridge. I'm very passionate about this city. It's been a great experience being on council. It's been a great honor, and I can truly say that the best days of my life I have spent on this council. I have spent attending events in the community and just interacting with you and hearing what's on your mind. And I always put my 100% or my 110% into everything I do. I'm not perfect, and I'm always working on doing things better, and I'm very humble. And I really care for you, and I really care about this city and the issues affecting it. And I believe that I'm a lot more experienced than what I have been in the past, that I have a good idea of what techniques work and what doesn't. And I believe that I can learn from that, and I can do an even better job. And I'm very proactive. I do look around to see what needs to be done. I do go out and lead. I've got a background in urban planning, so I've done a lot of work trying to bring more brownfield redevelopment to the city and trying to bring in more affordable housing. I do promote the city wherever I go. And I go to other cities, like to investors there, and I tell them, build in Cambridge. We have a beautiful downtown. Your product would fit this city well. Come here, build it. So, I'm asking for another strong mandate, and I'll work extremely hard for you. And I just want to say thank you for supporting me in the past, and I would like to have another opportunity to continue on the work. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicholas. And Ken.
All right. Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody. This has been a good night, interesting night. I do love Cambridge, from Cambridge. I do want to help out Cambridge in the best way I can by being Ward 8 councillor. I think we can make a difference, everybody together, and we can definitely tackle the hard issues and make Cambridge a better place, if that's possible, than what we currently have today, and just go on and upward and make it that much better. Like I said, I think this has been a great learning experience, and I think we can definitely keep things going from here, keep the momentum going. So, thank you.
Thanks, Ken. I'd like to thank the Ward 8 candidates for participating in tonight's debate. Thanks, Greg, for the questions. And make sure to watch Rogers TV on October 22nd for up-to-the-minute results. Thank you for watching, and have a great night.